The third pinch point is at the other end of Afton Road, where it meets the existing Trans-Canada Highway. And again, there are several homes which lie within the new highway boundary, which we would bid for within the home for a home compensation. And then there are a couple of building lots here, one within the purple area which potentially could have supported a home, and another one here which we've called Lot P1. The P and the A simply refer to Afton Road or Pito Loop, and they're purely created for the purpose of navigating through our valuation report. So these designations originate with this report. We can also see here two homes, number 10 and number 30, which are substantially closer to where the new highway will be once the highway is twinned. And these are two of the homes which will suffer injurious affection as a result of the acquisition. What I'd now like to go through is just an example of the home for a home calculation, and just to show how it's calculated for each individual home. So this particular one is for number 151 Sagamore Road, and the compensation in total has various components to it, and it's based on the square footage of the house. So as part of the valuation exercise, we did a comprehensive inspection of all of these homes, took measurements, took photographs, sufficiently to be able to calculate these compensation numbers. We estimated the replacement cost new of the home using costing manuals which are used within our industry. We added a 10% contingency allowance to the construction cost to come up with a total number, in this case $216,000 and change. We then added for site works, things like landscaping and driveways, which was provided by a separate estimate by a local construction contractor. And we deducted an amount for foundation works simply because it's already included in the $20,000 figure. So basically we're adding $15,000 for site works, for landscaping, driveways and that sort of thing to the construction cost of the house to come up with a number of $231,000. We also have to add a component for the lot value itself. The lot in this case would be based on the dimensions that we estimate would be appropriate to support the house, and the lot value in this case was $40,000. So the total compensation under the home for a home claim, on the home for a home basis for a claim, would be $271,000 for this particular home. Down at the bottom of the page here, we've shown a breakout of the lot value apportionment. So the total lot value of $40,000 is 100% of the value. None of that lies within the highway lands, in other words the reserve lands. It all lies within the fee simple lands, or rather 72% of it lies within the fee simple lands. 28% of it lies outside of the acquired lands. So there's 28% of this lot which is left over, if you like, after the highway acquisition. That's the component which goes in as injurious affection for the purpose of breaking out the compensation. So the total compensation is still $271,000, that's the land and the building, but we have to provide a breakdown of that $40,000 lot component between its various components. And all 7 of the homes which have to be relocated, which fall within this home for a home claim basis, all follow this same model, obviously with different results, but all of the calculations are shown in the full report. The injurious affection calculation, for the most part, has to do with the 4 homes which are left so close to the new highway boundaries that their value will be impacted. And the way that we approached this was to begin with an estimate of the market value of the homes before there were any changes. This is what we call the before value, and these values are established using a conventional direct comparison approach. That's one of the valuation approaches which we always use for single family homes. And in this case we had to make the assumption that they could be sold in the conventional market, assuming fee simple title. So if that were the case, then based on the selling prices of similar homes in this general area, we estimate that the values would fall between a low of $188,000 and $219,000. And the specific calculations behind each of those values is contained in the report itself, with all of the adjustments and the analysis. From that we have to make a judgment as to what the impact on that value will be as a result of the highway boundary coming closer. And this has to do with the changes in the specific site conditions for each of these homes. What we concluded was that the value will be a minimum of 25%, and in one case as much as 33%. So in other words, they're losing between a quarter and a third of their value because of the new site conditions that were going to prevail afterwards. So that gives us a total loss in value for each of these 4 homes, totaling $219,600, or around $55,000 per house on average. So that's the total amount of loss in value which goes forward in the report. Again, that has to be allocated between its components, so these 2 columns go through that exercise. The market value of the land itself, in other words the land which sits within the shaded area on the plans we've been looking at, is estimated as a proportion of the $40,000 total lot value. So for example, in the first case, 45% of that building lot sits within the land that is going to be acquired. So 45% of the $40,000 gives us $18,000 as what we call market value component. The rest of the loss in value is attributed to injurious affection. So the $47,300 plus the $18,000 market value figure gives you the total loss in value of $65,300. And similarly for all 4 homes. So we finish with pure injurious affection claim of $154,000 and a market value component of $65,600. The facts behind those calculations and what's driving the percentage loss in value is shown on this table. Again, it shows each of the 4 individual homes, and it shows the percentage change or the percentage loss as a result of the acquisition of the land. So you can see in this first example, number 123 Sagamore Road, right now it sits 750 feet away from the Trans-Canada Highway. Once the new connector road is built, the house will be just 23 feet away from the new boundary, which is a 97% change just in the dimensions there. If you look at the average depth of the lot, or what we call the notional lot, because these are not actual building lots, these are lots which we've simulated for purpose of the valuation. There's a 50% loss in the average depth, and there is a 45% loss in the actual value of the building lot as a result of the new highway going through. And similarly for the other 3 homes, we show percentage losses here in terms of the percentage loss in area. It's a minimum of 22% and a maximum of 47%. The average depth of the lot varies from a loss of 33% in one case up to 50%. So the changes here are fairly dramatic, which is why the injurious affection estimates, the losses in value are relatively high at 25% to 33%. The table here shows a summary of all of the various components of the claim, and under its various headings, and shows all of the various parcels which will be acquired. So there are a total of 14 individual parcels which will be acquired. They are all broken out on this table and the various tables which follow. And the table has been colour-coded in order to make it easier to navigate through the various heads of claim. So just going through the colours here. The first one, the green colour, has to do with land value. The second one, the blue one, has to do with land value. The third one is home for a home. The third one is the injurious affection component. There's another component which I've not spoken about yet. It's relatively minor. That's called set off for betterment, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then lastly, disturbance. So each of these components can be referenced to pages of the report, and it's also, for the purpose of navigation through this table, they're all colour-coded. So you can immediately see where each component and line item fits within the various heads of claim. The component which I've not talked about yet has to do with the market value of the lands, and this is pure market value of the land with no improvements on it. And there are basically two components to this. The market value of land which is used for resource or holding or recreational purposes, and then the market value of unimproved building lots. And we've talked about the unimproved building lots already and the value that's been given to those. The value of the resource and holding and recreational land is again generated using a direct sales comparison method, where we research and analyse sales of comparable parcels of land in the area and generate values for the various parcels which are being acquired in this particular case. The full details of all of that analysis and research is contained in the report itself, but what this report shows, what this table shows, is just the results of those calculations. But just by way of summary, the resource and holding and recreational land components have been calculated using values which range from $1,250 per acre at the low end up to a high of $6,000 per acre. And that really is a factor of the location of the particular parcel, the servicing in terms of sewer and water services, and the topography of the land. So that varies from one part of the reserve to another, and so the values likewise change. In terms of the unimproved building lot values and the value of those, most of those are included at a value of between $40,000 and $45,000, with a lower value of $25,000 on the building lots which are situated immediately next to the existing Trans-Canada Highway along Afton Road. And so this table continues for several pages, capturing each of the individual parcels as it goes and allocating values and the various heads of claim. And provides a total for the fee simple lands in the Afton area. That's the main reserve, 34 acres in total. Total compensation number there for that component. And then continues into the two parcels which are being taken from the Heatherton lands. And then finally, the table shows a complete summary of all of the various components: the highway land, the fee simple land, the replacement cost of the 7 homes, the site improvements, which are fairly incidental, the injurious affection, and the disturbance or moving costs, all broken out into its various categories and collectively shown in total numbers in the far right column, totaling $2,372,800. The only component which I've not spoken about yet is this column called set-off or betterment, and that deducts a number of $15,800 from the total claim. And this has to do with the Expropriation Act and what it says about the benefits that a landowner may receive from the work that's going to be done. So if there are benefits, then they can be deducted from the injurious affection component of the claim. There are very small areas here which fit within this set-off component, and they have to do with very specific parts of the land which are going to be left over, remnant parts of the land which may have no obvious use or value because of the altered configuration, but there's no entitlement to claim compensation in those specific cases because of the set-off requirements. In other words, the benefits that will come once the highway and interchange has been constructed will offset those specific losses. The final component here is the disturbance page, which is as I say, it's for the cost of moving. We obtained an estimate from Premier Van Lines in Truro, who gave us a verbal estimate over the phone of between $2,000 and $2,500 for moving a home, including packing and unpacking of all of the goods and contents. And so we've included as part of the compensation $2,500 for each of the 7 homes to be relocated.
Lee, thank you for that breakdown of your evaluation report, and I'm sure it's going to be very helpful for community members as they go through the materials. One of the things I just wanted to briefly provide a question to you on, Lee, is currently Buckingham has a number of specific claims involving claims against the federal government for things that have taken place throughout history. And so there is one specific claim that is within negotiations that involves the highway itself, the initial taking of reserve lands for purposes of having the Trans-Canada run and sever 2 parcels of band lands there. Does any of this compensation that you just outlined involve our specific claim?
No, I'm familiar with the basis of those claims that you're talking of. This claim here for compensation has nothing to do with the specific claims. They will travel completely independently. So this compensation estimate does not include anything to do with the specific claims.
Okay, thank you for that. I noticed within your presentation, and you referenced the Expropriation Act, and there was a portion that you mentioned dealing with, I think it was called betterment and set-off. Can you just sort of revisit that one more time?
Sure, yes. It's a component of the Expropriation Act, which basically, for want of a better term, is a clawback of part of the compensation, where a landowner is left in a better position as a result of what's going to be constructed once the expropriation has gone through. In this particular case, the highway interchange work will create development opportunities for the band on land which it didn't previously have, commercial development, for example, around the interchange. There is a value there that will come to the band and to all the surrounding landowners. So there is a financial benefit that will accrue to the band. Nevertheless, it's still entitled to a full claim for compensation. The set-off provision specifically is a clawback of part of the injurious affection claim. So if a landowner is claiming that its lands have been diminished in value because of the acquisition, while at the same time it's going to benefit from what's going to be constructed, then some or all of that can be deducted from the injurious affection component. And perhaps the best way to illustrate it will be on this plan. So if you take these vacant, what we call building lots, simulated building lots, you can see that in this case, for example, what we call lot S1, approximately 3/4 of that land area is going to be acquired because it's within the shaded area, but a portion of it remains outside of the acquired land. So the band will retain that, but obviously it has no value remaining as a building lot, it's simply too small. So the value of lot S1, as we call it, in its entirety is $40,000. The proportion which is being acquired is 3/4, which is approximately $30,000 or thereabouts. The value that would normally go forward as an injurious affection claim would be the remaining $10,000, which is the diminished value of what's left. Under the betterment rules of the Expropriation Act, if there is an overall benefit to the landowner as a result of what's going to be constructed, then this particular component, which is relatively small in the context of this claim, that $10,000 gets clawed back and deducted from the claim. So that portion of the claim never actually goes forward. The land remains with the band, but the diminished value of that very small component is not what we call compensable. And so there are a series of these relatively small remnant parcels of land. In total, they are around $13,500, and so that's what we call the betterment component. It's relatively insignificant in the context of this total claim.
Just another thing, I noticed, what is this document?
This document is the valuation report in its entirety. Mm-hmm. It's over 150 pages, and that's what we produced, and that's what we call a master valuation report.
Okay.
And the pages which I've been going through in the presentation are pages taken directly from this document.
Okay. Now, I noticed that what has been shared with us when you finished the report was an executive summary, which is a really good condensed version of this, which will be going out in the packages to community members. Do you have a copy of one?
The executive summary is a much thinner document,
yeah,
lighter weight. It contains the essential conclusions of the master valuation report. It includes the opening letter, the covering letter, which is addressed to you and signed by me, with a summary of the compensation. It specifically just says that this is part of a comprehensive report, and that the report should be read in its entirety, so that this summary is not in any way misleading. So if anyone requires access to the full report for further clarification of anything, then they should certainly be allowed to do that. And we would encourage people to do that.
So certainly we'll make available copies of that, and it will be going out within the package as well for information purposes for community members. The other thing I do want to add is Lee will be coming to our community on June 19th for our community meeting involving the highway project. So if you have any further questions, or comments, please come to our community meeting and talk to Lee and the many other people that will be there. I really want to thank you for being able to provide a video for community members to talk about the compensation package for the highway project, and I just truly appreciate what you're doing for us, Lee.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.